Hey, space explorers.
In July of 1969, the world held its breath. Neil looked through the small, square window of the lunar module, his heart pounding, not from fear, but from awe. The moon's surface shimmered beneath them like powdered silver, untouched and eternal. "Houston, Tranquility Base here," he said, voice steady but filled with wonder. "The Eagle has landed." Static crackled, then the cheer of humanity echoed across Earth. Millions of hearts synchronized with the slow, deliberate steps of two men walking on another world. Buzz Aldrin followed Neil down the ladder, the dust rising and falling in slow motion, like it too was surprised by the weight of history. On the other side of the world, a Soviet engineer named Anya Volkov sat in a dimly lit control room in Moscow. She watched the broadcast in silence, her face illuminated by the bluish glow of the monitor. Pride and envy wrestled inside her. Pride for what humanity had achieved, and envy that it wasn't her nation planting the flag. She turned to her colleague and whispered, "They may have the moon, but we will have the stars." 2 years later, in 1971, her words began to take shape. From the frozen steppes of Kazakhstan, Salyut 1 rose into the sky, the first true home beyond Earth. Inside its cramped metallic shell, the hum of recycled air was the song of survival. For the first time, humans weren't just visiting space, they were living there. Commander Dobrovolsky floated through the narrow corridor, watching his breath shimmer in the light of the small porthole. Below him, Earth spun, oceans, clouds, and continents swirling together like a living canvas. Yet the silence outside was endless, a silence that could swallow thoughts whole. Every day aboard Salyut felt both infinite and fragile. A loose screw, a miscalculated valve, a single spark, any of them could end everything. But still they orbited. Still they looked outward. And far beyond even their reach, in the vacuum where sunlight faded into starlight, two small golden travelers waited in darkness, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, resting on launch pads, their destiny unknown. It was a warm August morning in 1977 at Cape Canaveral. The air trembled with the sound of turbines and the deep, steady heartbeat of a Titan Centaur rocket. Inside its nose cone rested a fragile dream. No astronauts this time, no living crew, only Voyager 2, a machine of circuits, gold, and hope. Among the engineers watching was Dr. Elaine Carter, her eyes shielded from the sun, her heart caught between science and poetry. She whispered to a colleague, "We're sending a message in a bottle to the ocean of the stars." The engines ignited and the rocket tore through the sky, fire against blue, thunder against silence. Voyager 2 carried with it a golden record, sounds and images from Earth, greetings in 55 languages, the cry of a baby, the laughter of children, Bach and Chuck Berry side by side, and the heartbeat of a woman. A real heartbeat, recorded from a NASA scientist named Anne Druin. When Voyager 1 followed a few weeks later, the twin spacecraft began their long, silent voyage outward. Past Mars, past Jupiter's swirling storms, past Saturn's icy rings. Each world revealing itself in colors humanity had never truly seen before. As the data streamed back, the images appeared one by one on glowing monitors at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. The Great Red Spot on Jupiter, a storm larger than Earth itself. Saturn's rings,
not solid, but millions of dancing shards of ice and dust. Each revelation was a gift from the dark. Years passed. The voyagers drifted beyond the reach of sunlight strong enough to warm them. Their instruments grew colder, but they still spoke. Faint radio whispers that took 17 hours to reach home. Then, in 1990, as Voyager 1 turned its camera back toward where it came from, a final image was taken at Carl Sagan's request. A photograph of Earth. Just a pale blue speck suspended in a sunbeam. "That's home," Sagan would later say. "On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives, on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam." And so the voyagers continued. They drifted past the edge of the solar wind, past the invisible boundary that separates the sun's breath from the eternal dark, into interstellar space. No longer bound to the sun, they became the first messengers of Earth to cross the frontier. But in a quiet observatory in Moscow, now retired, Anya Volkov stood by her telescope and looked at the stars. She had followed the news. She knew of the golden records, the music, the words. She smiled faintly and murmured, "They carry us all." She wondered, perhaps, in 1,000 years, something out there would listen.
By the year 2012, Voyager 1 was more than 18 billion kilometers from home. Its solar wind detector had fallen quiet. Beyond its sensors stretched a realm no human instrument had ever reached: interstellar space. At NASA's Deep Space Network in California, the engineers waited for the signal, a thread of light traveling across time and distance, weaker than the flicker of a candle on the moon. Dr. Elaine Carter, older now, silver streaking her hair, leaned forward as a technician called out, "We have a ping." The numbers scrolled across the screen and she smiled. "It's through," she whispered. "We're outside." Cheers filled the control room, but beneath the joy lay a quiet melancholy. Voyager 1 was still talking, but everyone knew it would not forever. Its power was fading. One by one, its instruments would fall dark. That night, when the others had gone home, Elaine stayed behind. She played the Golden Records recordings through the speakers, the greetings, the songs, the heartbeat. She closed her eyes and imagined that heartbeat drifting between the stars, echoing faintly through the endless dark. Far away, in a workshop on the edge of Moscow, Anya Volkov, now frail but sharp, sat with her granddaughter, Lena. They watched a live broadcast about Voyager's journey. "Grandma?" the girl asked softly. "Will they ever come back?" Anya shook her head with a small smile. "No, my dear. They will keep going forever. They are our message to the universe, telling it that we were here and that we tried to understand." She looked up at the night sky through the open window. The same stars she had watched in 1969 were still burning, patient and eternal. Decades passed. On Earth, new generations looked upward, to the moon again, to Mars and beyond. New ships were built, faster and wiser. But somewhere far beyond Pluto, in the cold where sunlight could no longer touch, two tiny probes kept traveling. Their antennas, now coated with cosmic dust, still pointed home. They carried a memory of laughter, of oceans, of language, of love. The last whispers from Voyager 1 came faint and slow, a dying heartbeat across the cosmos. Then, silence. But silence was never truly empty. In that quiet, the Golden Records drifted on, spinning gently, waiting for someone, someday, to listen.
It was the year 3027. Humanity had long left Earth's cradle. Cities floated among the clouds of Venus, colonies dotted Mars and Titan, and great silver ships roamed between the stars. Yet even in this age of light-speed travel and artificial suns, There was a quiet reverence for the past, for the first whispers sent into the dark. At the Outer Systems Observatory, on the edge of Neptune's orbit, a young astrophysicist named Kaya Sorel sat before a wall of monitors. Her task was simple: to listen. For decades, no one had heard a word from the old Voyager probes. Most believed they were gone, their circuits frozen, their power long dead. Then one night, a signal arrived. It was faint, so faint that most of the automated systems ignored it. But Kaya noticed. She enhanced the waveform, filtered out cosmic noise, and there it was again, a trembling pulse, repeating every few seconds. Old, familiar, human. She felt her heart race. Computer cross-referenced signal patterns with historical NASA archives. The AI hesitated, then replied, "Match found, Voyager 1 beacon, identification code verified." Kaya stared at the screen. "That's impossible," she whispered. Voyager 1 had been silent for more than 1,000 years. The signal carried a simple transmission, garbled, broken, but real. A final fragment of the old machine's voice. "Still here. Still listening." Kaya didn't sleep that night. She wrote her report, attached the data logs, and sent it across the solar network. Within hours, scientists, historians, and poets alike were awake. Across 1,000 worlds, people turned their eyes toward the stars again. Weeks later, a fleet of exploration drones was dispatched to the signal's origin, deep within the interstellar void, near the edge of the Oort cloud. When they arrived, they found something extraordinary. Voyager 1, scarred and ancient, its golden record still gleaming faintly beneath layers of ice and dust. The drone's cameras focused on the plaque, the etched image of a man and a woman, the diagram of hydrogen, the path from Earth. Kaya watched from her console, tears in her eyes. "You made it," she whispered. "You never stopped." The drones carefully retrieved the record and transmitted a copy of its grooves, the music, the greetings, the laughter. For the first time in a millennium, the sounds of Earth in the 20th century played again among the stars. But as Kaya replayed the signal, she noticed something strange. Another transmission, faintly echoing beyond the Voyager's last broadcast. Not from Earth, not from any known source. A pattern, rhythmic, deliberate, almost musical. She froze. "Computer, isolate that signal." The machine obeyed. The sound grew clearer, like a voice trying to mimic the tones from the golden record, as if something was answering.
The message repeated every 93 seconds, a sequence of tones, structured but alien, too precise to be random, too emotional to be mechanical. Kaya stared at the waveform, every hair on her arm standing on end. "It's replying," she whispered. "Something's replying." At first, her colleagues dismissed it as interference, a quirk of the background radiation or an echo of the Voyager's dying transmitter. But as days passed, the pattern grew more complex. The tones shifted, forming variations that mirrored human musical scales. It was learning. It was listening. Across the solar network, every observatory tuned in. Mathematicians, linguists, and AI systems began analyzing the signal. They called it Echo 1, the first possible response from beyond the solar system. Kaya barely slept. She lived at her console, surrounded by soft light and the hum of data streams. She felt as though the entire history of humanity had led to this moment, from Armstrong's first step to the Voyager's golden record to this faint, trembling voice in the dark. Then one morning, the tones changed. The music slowed, and through the static came a modulation that froze the room. A voice, artificial, distorted, but shaped into human phonemes. "We hear. Beautiful sounds. We come." The room fell silent. Kaya whispered, "Oh my God." It wasn't just a reply. It was an invitation. A month later, the signal's origin was triangulated. A point 1.4 light-years away near the edge of Proxima Centauri's system. It wasn't a random patch of empty space. It was where Voyager 1 had drifted, now surrounded by something vast, a formation of objects reflecting light in unnatural patterns, as if an architecture of orbiting mirrors or ships had emerged to greet it. Every telescope on every world pointed there. Every transmission network buzzed with questions. Was it intelligent? Was it alive? Was it human curiosity finally answered? Kaya stared at the data feed and whispered to herself. They found our message in a bottle, and now they're sending one back.
When the Council of Worlds gave its approval, there was no cheering, only silence. Everyone understood the weight of it. The first voyage, not just into interstellar space, but towards someone waiting there. The ship that would make the journey was called Aurora, a long, spindle-shaped craft woven from silver composites and dark solar sails. Its engines could bend space itself in slow ripples, pushing it toward Proxima Centauri in less than 5 years of subjective time. Kaya Sorel was chosen to lead the scientific team. She spent the departure night alone on the observation deck, staring at the blue crescent of Earth, whispering to herself the first words ever recorded on the golden record. We step out of our front door to greet the universe. The voyage was quiet. Beyond the heliopause, stars no longer twinkled. They burned with a steady, ancient patience. The crew listened to the Echo 1 signal each day, and every day the message evolved. Tones became chords became phrases. It was as if the unknown speakers were practicing, learning the rhythm of human speech. Then one morning, as Aurora crossed the halfway mark, the ship's AI announced, "Incoming transmission, new sequence appended to Echo 1." The bridge fell silent. A crystalline sound filled the air, then a voice, still mechanical, but unmistakably human in cadence. "We see you, travelers of blue light, welcome." Kaya felt tears rise unbidden. She said, "They know we're coming." 5 years later, Aurora entered the Proxima system. The red dwarf star glowed dimly, its faint warmth brushing the ship's hull. And there, near a small, cold planet, floated an impossible sight, a lattice of radiant structures, moving in patterns that seemed both geometric and graceful, like an orchestra of light. At the center of the lattice, something glimmered, a small, ancient object held gently in place. Voyager 1. Its golden record still turned, reflecting the red star's light like a miniature sun. "Open a channel," Kaya ordered. A moment passed. Then the same crystalline tones filled the cabin, followed by a new phrase. "We kept your messenger safe. We heard your songs. Do you wish to speak?" Kaya's hands trembled above the console. She thought of Anya Volkov, of Elaine Carter, of all who had looked up and wondered if anyone was out there. She leaned close to the mic and spoke, her voice steady. "This is humanity. We've come to listen."
The lattice of light unfolded like a blooming flower. Aurora's senses struggled to describe it. Every measurement contradicted itself. The structures weren't made of matter in any form humans knew. They seemed to exist in overlapping dimensions, shimmering in and out of physical space. Kaya said, "Record everything." The crew watched as thin threads of light extended toward them, slow, deliberate, as if asking permission. Aurora's shields shimmered, then softened. The threads touched the hull. The entire ship vibrated with a low, harmonious tone. It wasn't hostile. It was music. The voice returned, clearer now, more confident, every word a melody. "We are the listeners. We found your golden song when the dark was still young. It spoke of oceans, of wind, of love. So we learned your voice. Kaya's breath caught. You learned from the record? We learned what sound means when it is shaped by longing. The light around them pulsed, and suddenly images began to form, not projected but experienced. Kaya stood on the lunar surface beside Neil Armstrong, felt the dust under her boots. Then she was floating in Salyut 1, looking down on Earth. Then she was Voyager itself, drifting through infinite night. It wasn't memory, it was understanding. When she opened her eyes, she was crying. The listeners spoke again. You sent us your beginning. Will you now share what you have become? Kaya looked around at her crew, the descendants of 1,000 explorers. They had crossed a sea of light because one small probe once carried a record of laughter and song. Yes, she said, we will share everything, and we will listen too. The lattice brightened. Slowly, one of the light beings extended a filament toward Voyager 1. It touched the golden record, and for the first time in over a millennium, the stylus moved again. Earth's sounds filled the cosmos. Rain on leaves, a mother's voice, the music of bark, the laughter of children. But now, there was something new woven into it, an answering chord from the stars themselves. For a long time, there were no words. Only the harmony of two civilizations meeting in the oldest language there was, sound shared across light years.
For days, no one aboard Aurora spoke above a whisper. The sound, the music between humanity and the listeners had become something sacred. Every tone, every pulse of light, every vibration carried meaning. Kaya realized that the listeners didn't have language as humans did. They were language. Their bodies resonated with emotion. Their light was thought itself. When they said, "We hear you," they meant it in every sense: sound, mind, and soul. Weeks passed as the exchange deepened. The listeners learned the history of Earth, its wars, its beauty, and endless striving toward the stars. In return, they showed Kaya's team how they perceived the universe, not as emptiness, but as a single breathing organism of light. Every star, every particle, was part of one vast song. When the time came to leave, Kaya stood before the shimmering lattice once more. Voyager 1 floated between them, now gleaming brighter than ever, its golden record etched with new patterns of light. The listeners had added their voice to it. "Traveler of blue light," the voice sang softly, "your message changed the silence. Now the silence will carry us both." Kaya nodded. "We'll send others. We'll bring new songs. We will listen." On the journey home, Kaya sat alone by the viewport. Through the glass, the red sun of Proxima faded into the distance. In her hand, she held a small crystalline shard the listeners had given her. When she touched it, it played a faint echo, human laughter woven with alien tones. It was the universe, finally singing in harmony. Back on Earth, centuries after Voyager had left its cradle, people once again stood under the night sky, no longer wondering if they were alone, but listening for the next verse. Because once, long ago, humanity had whispered into the dark, and the stars had whispered back. The end.